Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 321. The weekly little get together, we talk about recent gaming news. I'm, as always, your host, Stephen Brown, and tonight we have the details of a new Tomb Raider game that might have been leaked. Dead Island 2 might be set for a re-reveal later this year, and video game spending is down over year-to-year period, to be expected. But first, I want everyone here to know that this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching here live at Twitch TV/GamePoints, as we do every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, feel free to join in the conversation with any questions, comments, concerns you might have. If you can't, however, watch us live, you can check us out at a myriad of video hosting platforms, be it YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc. Regardless of where you're watching and you want to support the stream, you know what to do when it comes to likes, follows, bits, shares, all that good stuff. And if you do want to get involved with the conversation, try to keep them germane to the topics on hand. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the very first story of the night here, and that is via Video Game Chronicle by way of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast headline. The next Tomb Raider could have Lara Croft leading a team of Tomb Raiders. I'll get into my disappointment with that headline here in a second, but let's go ahead and go to the article first. At least, that is according to a script allegedly being used by the cast to unveil the game's actors, which was obtained and shared by Sacred Symbols, paywalled. Sacred Symbols, by the way, is a PlayStation podcast that is on Patreon. I do subscribe to them in the interest of full disclosure. According to the alleged script, the next Tomb Raider is internally known as Project Jawbreaker and is described as, quote, an action-adventure game set in a modern-day world rocked by a mysterious cataclysm, end quote. According to the casting notes for Lara, the project is looking to cast an authentic British actress in her mid-30s in the prototype of Emily Blunt or Rosamund Pike. To give you an idea of some of the trials and tribulations Lara will be going through in this game, there is a little bit of a story synopsis down below. Lara Croft is now at the top of her game, the script reads. Gone are the days of the young, inexperienced woman dealing with matters of legacy and familiar reckoning. Lara has let go of her childhood and fully embraced the life of the adventurer. Her legendary career has been lauded and printed in tabloids, tall tales of adventure that inspired a new generation of Tomb Raiders to seek their fortunes in the world. With this new phase of her life, Lara fully accepts her place among the ruins. For many years, Lara plunged the depths of forgotten places, played cat and mouse with many nefarious opponents, and worked to uncover, preserve, and protect lost secrets of the world, lest they fall into the wrong hands. End quote. Okay, I do hope that they're continuing on with the I shouldn't say recent, I guess they're 10 years old now, but that Crystal Dynamics Tomb Raider trilogy there. I'd like to see this maybe be 10 years after all that. I'm down for that idea. Move on behind this idea of a Tomb Raider prequel and actually continue the plot along with it so far. Back to the article. The script then describes what appears to be a team setup for the new Tomb Raider, which could see multiple characters involved in core gameplay. Additional Tomb Raiders have speaking roles in the alleged script, including characters Devendra and Tanvi. Another quote from the story synopsis. As the years have passed, Lara has become lonely at the top. The beginning of this next chapter presents Lara with a quintessentially adult problem, facing something that's too big to handle alone. On this new adventure, Lara will encounter a challenge she can only overcome with a team at her side. Collaboration is foreign to her. She's always succeeded alone, so this situation she's a fish out of water. That is what I hate about this, because when you start talking about adding all these extra Tomb Raiders in, that strikes me as live service bait. You can be the collection of Tomb Raiders to help Lara on her puzzle-solving adventure throughout all these mysterious tombs. And I hate it. The whole premise of Tomb Raider was you were alone in these extremely dangerous situations where everything could just go wrong and there's no one there to bail you out. I think I found the solitude to be a big drawing point of some of these games. Yes, I know a lot of the previous games you were killing people left and right. But the idea of doing these, what I would assume to be as some kind of co-op, really just feels like they're ham-fisting in a way to make more money through battle passes or season passes or whatever they may be. I hate that quite a bit. And it makes sense that live service is going to somehow be in here because I think EA just gave its earnings announcement. They said something like 70% of all of their revenue they made from video games came from live services. So every publisher is going to be cramming a live service of some time in there. Yes, we have essentially defeated the evil of the loot box in non-mobile gaming. Mobile gaming will always have it, but that's a different conversation. But now we're going to have to deal with the fact that every single AAA game that comes out, well, nearly every single AAA game that comes out, is going to have a form of this live service glommed onto it. We kind of moved away a little bit from this back when Dead Space 2 and 3 came out around that time period, when EA famously said every single one of their games will have some kind of online component to it. They were doing that weird upcharge to buy a used game if you wanted access to the multiplayer stuff in there or whatever hidden content in there, if you all remember that nonsense. This is just a variation of that. But remember what I've said multiple times on this. We are no longer just having these corporations compete for a dollar. They want our time as well. And that's the main reason why I hate this live service shit. Because I don't want to get involved in it. Now I know what some of you are saying. Well, if you don't want to play it, then don't play it. That's your choice. And hey, totally understandable. My problem with it is that it takes away resources from the game itself being made, despite what people at Square Enix or Crystal Dynamics might say. You only have 100% of time to work on a game. And when that time is gobbled up by putting in live services that may or may not hit, likely not hit given some of the state of these games, it just feels like a waste, rather than making the quintessential single player perfection experience that in Tomb Raider. I know I'm being overly lavish with the adjectives there. It's just one of those things that feels like they're chasing the thing rather than creating the thing, right? I'm not sure if that's really coming across the way I want it to. I can see the writing on the wall for this one, and that they're going to, when this game's officially revealed, announce the multiplayer experience with those Tomb Raiders helping out Lara, and I'm already dreading it. It's just my opinion. Hey, if you're into it, knock yourself out. More power to you. There is a secondary story on this here Tomb Raider leak that I wanted to get into. The Sacred Symbols podcast, which are the ones that ended up leaking this, that they had an advanced copy of the script somehow provided to them. They read some of the script out, and they were acting it out with one of the hosts putting on a horrendously bad, over-the-top Cockney accent for Lara. It was funny, it was humorous, and it got them DMCA'd. Square Enix and or Crystal Dynamics, a little bit fuzzy on exactly which one, reached out to Patreon and filed a DMCA complaint to have this episode taken down. In my opinion, abusing the DMCA over what was clearly fair use. No images of the game were shown, just the details of the script, and it was acted out in such an over-the-top, ridiculous way that it was clearly parody. I'm not going to go off on the DMCA rant so much tonight, but I will say that actions like this must be condemned wholeheartedly, and Square Enix / Crystal Dynamics, whatever one filed the DMCA, maybe both, need to be blasted loudly over it. So, what was going to be probably my second or third story that we're going to get into tonight is now the first. Because the Streisand effect is not only a real thing, but it needs to serve as a punishment to those who would take advantage of such laws like the DMCA. And now, I'm going to talk about the Tomb Raider leak up front. It's probably going to be the big headline story on the little thumbnail that goes on here. And everyone needs to know what this is, because trying to silence people from leaks from your organization, you are the guys that have the issue of security. And you're punishing other people for it. Fuck right off with that. Anyways, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. And feel free to specifically, I don't care if you share this video, but talk about this Tomb Raider leak. Talk about the script that they went over and how dumb it sounded, for lack of a better word. And check out Sacred Symbols podcast just to kind of dig that knife a little bit deeper into Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics. Hopefully, maybe they'll learn something from this. I doubt it, but maybe they will. Anyways, next story up on the docket. It is that time of year when all the publishers are starting to produce their quarterly financial results. So, of course, we have to at least take a quick look at the NPD. I promise you, This is not going to be me reading off just a series of games and what they sold, but I kind of want to take a look at the overall health of the industry and maybe comment onto why things are down, as you can see from this headline here. From the NPD group itself, by the way, links to all these stories will be provided down below in the description or over on the Discord link provided down there as well. NPD Group says the second quarter 2022 U.S. consumer spending on video game products decreased 13% to only $12.35 billion. That is billion with a B. Bravo. According to the Q2 2022 Games Market Dynamics U.S. report from the NPD Group, overall total consumer spending on video games in the U.S. totaled $12.35 billion in the second quarter. That would be between April and June of April 2022. This is a decline of 13% when compared to the same quarter last year. Overall content spending in Q2 reached $10.97 billion, which is a 13% decrease over Q2 in 2021. That is content spending, so like video games, like the actual game itself, not content, not accessories, not hardware, none of that stuff. Subscription content was the only segment to post positive gains. And that's why I say all these live services are not going away anywhere. That's what subscription content is. The monthly battle pass or the quarterly battle pass, the DLC add-on, the extra little, what's the term I'm thinking of? Anyways, anything extra on top of the game that has like a reoccurring fee to it, that hit positive. So the message clearly is make more stuff of that is if you're running from a pure business standpoint. Hardware and accessories declined 1% and 11% respectively. Among the best-selling and most played games across all platforms in the second quarter were as follows. Among Us. Kind of surprising. I actually thought Among Us fell off. Maybe it got big last year. Things are starting to blur together for me. Angry Birds 2, another older game. Bongo Blitz, something I've never heard of. All these are mobile games, by the way. Those two are mobile games at least. Call of Duty Warzone, Candy Crush Saga, Candy Crush Soda Saga, Clash of Clans, Coin Master, Diablo Immortal. Notice a lot of these are mobile games. Elden Ring, Envoy, The King's Return, Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto 5, Still, Homescapes, Kirby the Forgotten Land, Lego Star Wars, Skywalker Saga, Madden 2022, Mario Kart 8, Minecraft, MLB The Show 2022, Pokemon Go, Roblox, Royal Match, The Sims, and State of Survival. The only reason why I know some of these games is because they're those shitty ads you see on Facebook and any other social media where they show the idiot playing the game and they can't do the puzzle right and it's meant to infuriate you so you can download it and play it yourself. And then you find out that game is nothing like what they're advertising. That's what those games are. That's half of the best-selling NPD Group games on there. That is shocking to me. Actually, is it really shocking? No, it's not. Those mobile games make a lot of money. And they're not good. Anyways, back to the article itself. Video game hardware unit sales were led by Nintendo Switch, with PlayStation 5 hardware generated the highest dollar sales in the second quarter. Makes sense because there are more PlayStation 5 selling than Xbox 3 Series S and X's. And it's more expensive than the Switch, so makes sense to make more money as pure dollar sales go. But Switch still sells the most units. There's a very simple explanation as to why video games dropped 13% this year compared to last year. COVID. We're not trapped in our homes anymore, mostly, unless you're... Never mind. We're actually able to go outside. People are going back out and doing things like camping, going on vacations, going to movies, rather than being trapped at home playing video games. Now, don't get me wrong. I still like to be home playing video games, but not everyone only wants to do that. So people are starting to stretch their legs out, and that is a good thing. Go out and get some exercise. Touch grass, as the meme goes. So I would not be too concerned about this. However, there is a secondary factor to consider in that would get me a little bit worried if I was a publisher. And it's the fact that 2021 has been relatively scant for new releases. Of all the games on here that I read off, the only ones that I can think of that came out this year were Diablo Immortal, which we've talked about ad nauseum, Elden Ring, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, And that's it. Keep in mind that Madden, NFL 2022, and all that stuff were last year's games. You know, MLB The Show might have come out this year. I don't know my baseball seasons when it comes to games. Most of these games have existed for a long time. And Call of Duty Warzone's been out for a few years. Among Us, Angry Birds. You have all of your mobile Candy Crush, Clash of Clans, survival games. Grand Theft Auto 5 is approaching like 10 years, or have blown past 10 years. I'm not really too sure which. Where's the new stuff? Like I said, the 3 or 4 games that I read, of which the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, okay, Elden Ring was great. Kirby's cool. But there's no Horizon on here. That's what I would be concerned about if I was a publisher, is the fact that 2022 or 2022 seems to just be a dead year. And there's really nothing changing that before the end of the year. Yes, we have. That's not to say there is nothing coming out. You have things like God of War on the horizon, for example. But a lot of stuff that was supposed to come out this year that got delayed from 2021 has been delayed again until 2023. So when we start hitting Christmas time, I think you might see an even bigger drop than normal. And I get a distinct feeling that COVID kind of slowing down and people leaving their homes is not going to be the main reason for it at that point. But we'll find out come, I don't know, about 3-4 months from now when the next NPD quarterly results come in. Moving on, speaking of economic issues, another article from VGC here. Sony refuses to be drawn in on whether it could raise the price of the PS5. Now, for those of you who have not been watching the show, we talked about last week how the Oculus Quest 2 was getting a $100 price bump. And this is kind of matching a whole bunch of other manufacturers just raising the price on things in general. One, the chip shortage is getting worse and causing costs to go up. Two, inflation is a bitch everywhere. And that's also leading to some issues. When Sony was asked about whether or not their other price hikes, because they're raising up the prices on a whole bunch of other electronics that they have, might affect the PlayStation 5, they are just staying silent about it. To me, that means they're strongly thinking it or are already planning on doing it and are just afraid to tell anyone. They're going to wait till the right time for that. Anyways, back to, starting with the article. In April, Sony raised the Japanese prices of range of consumer electronics and products, including some cameras, Blu-ray players, home theater systems, headphones, and speakers. It said the price revisions will be made in light of the ongoing semiconductor shortage and other external factors that have caused the cost of raw materials, manufacturing, and distribution to increase. By the way, the nonsense going on in Taiwan right now, definitely not helping with that either, because shipping goes to the Taiwanese Strait at a very big clip. So when you have Chinese fleets and U.S. fleets kind of sparring with each other, not physically, but a lot of posturing going on, it tends to cause havoc with the shipping lanes, thus further increasing the cost of things. Back to the article. During its first quarter earnings call on Friday, Sony was asked whether it was considering increasing the PlayStation 5 price point in face of similar market pressures. They ended up saying the following. This is from Chief Financial Officer Hiroki Totoki. About a potential PlayStation 5 increase for the PS5, at this point in time, there's nothing specific I could share for you about prices, end quote. That is not a no. To be fair, that is not a yes. However, if it was good news for the consumer and something that Sony wanted to sing about, they would be upfront saying, no, we're not doing it. The fact that he said there is nothing specific he could share about prices means, yeah, I would assume a price increase is coming. Or, at the very least, what they might do is kind of one of those half-step upgrade console upgrades, where the PlayStation 5.5 or whatever you might want to call their weird little modular, whatever the next upgrade is. It's not fully PlayStation 6, but kind of like their PS5 Pro, as it were. What might happen here is they keep the prices of the base units already fixed, but that Pro version might be another $50 or $100 more than they were originally on planning, or they could be cutting features that were going to be in there, just anything to save costs any way they can. What they could also do, if they wanted to be a little extra sneaky about it, is when they release the next console, so for, say, $100 to $150 more, they stop manufacturing the old ones. and that would be essentially a de facto price increase. Sure, you might be getting a little bit more, but that is a way they could increase the price on these things without necessarily causing a bunch of consumer backlash. Either way, when a company doesn't tell you something, it's usually not because it's a good thing. If it was something they felt was going to be positive, they'd be thinking about it already. Back to the article. In recent months, analysts have forecast that the products that rely on semiconductors are set to become more expensive as chip makers increase their prices and companies that buy them in turn pass on the cost to consumers. That's how the market works. Earlier this week, Reality Labs announced plans to increase the price of its Meta Quest 2 VR headset by $100, a decision attributed to rising manufacturing and shipping costs. I do kind of feel a little bit for Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo here. For the first time in years, they actually raised the price of their video games from $60 to $70 to kind of meet inflation. And the sudden jump up in inflation because of the stay-at-home orders and the handing out match-mouth cash and all that good stuff, which caused prices to spike, not only eliminated that $10 extra profit margin they had, but probably also ate deeper into the red on them. I kind of feel for them for a little bit, but that said, I don't think you can charge anymore for these things. I think people are already kind of tapped out on cash, and I think you would be insane to release anything at a higher price point right now when it comes to consumer electronics. I guess if you're thinking of getting one soon, you might want to consider it sooner than later. Beyond that, though, especially the fact that PlayStation 5s are still kind of hard to find, so someone could have been trying to get one for a bit now, and admittedly, you can. I withdraw that statement. If you really, really want one, you can find one right now. But still, they're not walk into any store and buy. So that also might cause some issues from a few people there, where they're like, "Hey, I've been waiting to buy one, I couldn't find one," and then you jack up the price on it. Fuck off with that. So it's not good any way you slice it. But I would expect one of those two scenarios. Either the price of the system itself goes up, or they release the pro version of that system with a few extra bells and whistles, but not necessarily enough to justify the cost increase if you take a look at the tech behind it, and then discontinue the older models. That is what I would think would be the two scenarios here. I'm leaning more toward that second one, by the way. Anyways, moving on to the next story here. Once again, more business speak from IGN this time around here. Activision Blizzard loses millions of players, but adds 25% more developers on year to year. That essentially translates into they've lost a bunch of subs. People aren't playing their games as much, but they increased their staff. To the article itself. Call of Duty and Overwatch publisher Activision Blizzard lost millions of players compared to this time last year, but despite that decrease, has grown its pool of developers by 25% rather. During its latest earnings results, Activision Blizzard revealed that its monthly active users categorized as anyone who accesses one of its game in that time frame. Keep in mind that does not mean that you have to buy anything in that. It means you just have to log on and play. That number fell from 372 million at the end of March 2022 to 361 million at the end of June. This drop continues the publisher's downward trend, as the number of monthly active users from June 30th of last year was 408 million, and has fallen relatively steadily ever since. I know that some people out there will be looking at this saying, see, our boycott of Activision Blizzard worked because they're an evil company and they do horrible things and they treat women like shit and it's a bro culture and we need to change it. And I get your point of view. That's not what caused this drop. The vast majority of gamers have no idea what the hell you're talking about when you're bringing that stuff up. What caused this drop is the same thing that caused the overall drop in video game sales. Did you hear? COVID's essentially a thing of the past. I know what you're saying. Oh my God, it's still out there. You can get affected by it. Yes, and that is true. But when it comes to locking things down, forcing people to stay in their homes, that stuff's over with. So it makes sense that, much like how the entire video game industry dropped 13%, Activision Blizzard would have some of their player base drop as well. Additionally, even more so than the industry at large, Activision Blizzard has been very silent on the new game front, with the only thing they've released of note in the past recent history being Diablo Immortal, and we all know what that is currently going through. It's not social issues that are the reason for this drop. It's that people are going outside. Pure and simple. That's what it comes to it. Now, they're increasing by 25% of the development. That is one of those things where they're starting to crank up polishing some of these other projects. And I also think this might be... No, I take that back, actually. I was going to go somewhere with it, but I don't think that's actually accurate. But they are trying to round out some of the development of these long just-ending games. For example, Overwatch 2, Diablo 4. You have these big titles on the verge of being released. I get the feeling they need some extra people to kind of help tighten up the screws on that. Also, whatever the next iteration of Warzone is going to be, things like that. So they seem to be cranking up the engine to be spitting things out soon, I guess is the long roundabout way of me trying to get to what I'm saying here. Next story, as we move away from some of the more numbery business news to other things, we have a new studio to talk about. What you're seeing here is the homepage for Dark Passenger, a team composed of veteran talent from CD Projekt Red, thus why it is all in Polish. We don't really know what they're going to be working on exactly, but what we do know is that for the past 2 years, they have been in pre-production of this new intellectual property set in feudal Japan. Beyond that, don't know. Now, I know what your first thought is. Ghost of Tsushima. I don't know if that's necessarily the case here. It seems to be a lot... I look at this, and it kind of leans a little bit... I don't know if supernatural is the right word, but it's definitely a darker tone than Ghost of Tsushima was. Especially with this picture right here for certain. All this is in Polish, unfortunately. I couldn't translate it for you. But it's good to see a new studio come up. I like seeing new blood, as it were. I like seeing new teams rise away from the constraints that working with a bigger team might impose on them. That said, the claim that says they used to work for CD Projekt Red does not necessarily carry the same gravitas that it once did. So as far as I'm concerned, this is just a new studio making a samurai game. Cool. I'll take a look at it when it comes out, and we'll reserve judgment for then. But I wanted to mention it because it's always fun to see a new developer coming up, to see what ideas they might bring to the table, to see if they do anything new. And I certainly hope they do. Moving on to the next topic here. This is via Tryhard Guides. Dead Island 2 revival planned for Q4 2022. Now, as some of you may know, Dead Island 2 has been teased for, years at this point. We all remember that trailer of the guy jogging down what looked to be a boardwalk as all kinds of zombie madness was going on behind him. I want to say that was like 7 or 8 years ago. I should have looked to see when that trailer came out. And this game since has gone dark and come back and gone dark again. It seems to be stuck in development hell. We might finally be getting some movement on it, however, to the article. Sources with knowledge of the plans surrounding Dead Island 2 have said that the game is likely to be re-revealed later this year. Although the exact reveal date of Dead Island 2 was not provided, the same sources said that the reveal at the Game Awards later this year would make a lot of sense, and I believe that is where that trailer was originally shown to begin with. A game of this scale, perfect fit for the Game Awards later this year. It's understood that the next installment will have a big focus on cooperative play. And several PlayStations at Dambuster focusing on the feature. In addition, it has also been suggested the cast is completely new, with 5 or 6 new characters coming to the game. I'm fine with that. It's not like I had any great attachment to anyone from the first Dead Island, and honestly, from what I understand myself, you really don't need to have them in this game. They'll be great to have in there, but they're not really needed. My cynical, jaded brain tells me they'll be included as some kind of downloadable content later as, hey, you want to play as the cast of the original Dead Island? Well, the first 2 people are included in the Season 1 Battle Pass, and the second will be included in the second 2 will be included in the second-year Battle Pass. But that might be overly cynical and jaded. But I'm probably right on that. Expect more on this later this year. This being shown at the Game Awards makes perfect sense. It is where these, I don't want to say B-tier games, because that kind of makes it feel like the Game Awards doesn't have any huge announcements, and they do. But companies are more and more saving their big guns for their own shows. PlayStation showcases, Nintendo Directs, etc. Dead Island 2 doesn't necessarily... I think they're part of Embracer Group. I think Dan Buster is part of Embracer Group. I'm not positive. Either way, something like this makes sense to have someone else take the reins up and promote it for you rather than do it in-house. One final news story that I have for you all today right here is via The Verge. Logitech announces a new dedicated cloud gaming handheld device. I will start off by saying you are right to fear Tencent, and you are right not to do any business with them if you can avoid it. I also understand that trying to avoid Tencent's presence in the gaming industry is easier said than done, considering they have their fingers in everything. But I totally get if you don't even want any part of this because of the Tencent involvement. To the article itself. Logitech G is working with Tencent Games to launch a dedicated cloud gaming handheld later this year. The new hardware will be designed for cloud gaming services, offering a dedicated device with the controls instead of the typical cases you attach to phones. The cloud gaming handheld will support Xbox Cloud Gaming and NVIDIA's GeForce Now service, and Logitech and Tencent are both working with Microsoft and NVIDIA on the hardware. Logitech and Tencent are simply teasing the device today, and there's no mention of release date, pricing, or even what the cloud gaming handheld looks like. Logitech will obviously be leaning on its experience building PC and console game accessories, while Tencent looks to be more of an operations partner. The new cloud gaming handheld was only a dedicated website where you can sign up for updates, but the Logitech is promising a launch later this year, so we should get more information in the coming months. This kind of feels like a Steam Deck competitor that is going to be 100% focused on cloud gaming. Probably run cheaper, I would imagine, as long as you have the subscription fee to whatever cloud gaming service is on there. That's just what this feels like. Pocket Stadia, as it were. I feel like this still isn't ready for prime time yet. I know we have a bunch of little devices to attach to phones like they referenced to earlier, and I know that the Stadia is a thing. I still don't think that cloud gaming is where it needs to be yet. Maybe a couple years from now. Maybe by the time this comes out, it will be where where it needs to be. But I've played around with PlayStation's streaming. I've played around with Stadia. I've played around with a few things, and it still has just enough jitteriness to it. It's not constant by any stretch, but it's just not there yet. I feel like it's still 5 years away for the tech on that. However, we'll see. What this is actually going to end up involving by the time it comes out, who the hell knows? I can tell you right now, though, Tencent being deeply involved in it, I'm probably not even going to take a second glance at it other than to talk about it here on this show. That does it for the news. I have two delays that I want to mention real quick. First up, Gloomwood has been delayed by a short 3 weeks due to some unforeseen game development issues that have cropped up over the last few months, as well as several developers falling sick to the gloom, aka COVID. We have made the decision to push Gloomwood early access date by only 3 weeks to September 6th. It is a smaller game. I really like the developers here. I'm really looking forward to this game myself, as far as just like an immersive sim kind of fan. But the main reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's one of the few times where I've actually seen a game developer saying COVID, our developers getting sick is the reason why we're pushing it back, as opposed to, oh, issues related with COVID, which is kind of like a blanket excuse that you can use to delay anything and no one's going to think twice about it. These guys are actually coming out saying, yeah, we got sick. Awesome. That's the kind of clarity that I like. Not the, well, because of worldwide issues with COVID. It's like, no. Tell me exactly what's going on. And thank you very much to you guys for actually pointing out this is why we got sick and this is why it's getting, that we are sick and this is why it's getting delayed. I just appreciate the clarity up front. Feels like I'm being jerked down a little bit less. We do have one more delay as well, and this one also kind of hurts. Warhammer Dark Tide is getting delayed. Once again, not by much. A few weeks, but still. To the little post they put up on Twitter. Today, we decided to delay the launch of Warhammer 40k Dark Tide to November 30th on PC. Xbox Series S and X will launch shortly after PC with a specific launch date to come. And then they go on and talk about all the typical things you expect from a delayed press release. That sucks too. Delays happen. I get it. But once again, we have been stuck in like this weird 2-year stretch of delay after delay after delay. And it's... I just don't believe even release windows anymore. Like, for example, when Starfield got delayed, I think they pushed it back to... I don't remember its exact day off the top of my head. Let's just say it was March. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say Starfield was delayed till March. I go bullshit. That's not March. That's June or July. Just Dead Space. That Dead Space reboot is supposed to come out in January. Bullshit. That's February. That's April or May. I just... We're at the point when it comes to this shit where if you tell me a launch window, I'm just going to assume you're lying to me. And that's not a good place to be, because if I assume that you can't even be truthful to me about the release date, it's going to be spreading to other things you're telling me about the game itself. Now, I know some people out there are saying, well, they could have a legitimate reason for delay. They could have issues going on, or in the case of Gloomlord, they actually got sick. I get that. I do. Do not give a release date then. Don't even give a release window. Don't even give a release year. Just say it's coming. And then when you know you can hit it, then tell us about it. Because it comes back to that whole like thing about feeling like you're being jerked around. I've got no problem with a game being delayed. I do have a problem with every single goddamn game being delayed, however. It gets ridiculous after a certain point, and we have long past hit that point to where it's just affecting my general tone and tenor of the entire industry. I look at it and I go, you're lying to me. Or at the very least, you have no idea what you're talking about and you're incompetent. Now, I am not, to be clear, I am not specifically singling out Fat Shark on this and work. I think Fat Shark is making this. Yeah, Fat Shark. I'm not specifically singling them out on there. I know that they just happen to be the target for my ire at this point. My target, however, is the game industry as a whole. There is no reason why everything should be having such a problem right now. Other than just, I think, I don't want to get into a rant I've gone into multiple times before, so we'll just leave it at that. Dark Tide, delayed. However, we do have some stuff coming out this week that I want to get into. A couple things actually look pretty nice. First up on the docket, Froggun. A Portmanteau, I think that's what that word is, of Frog and Gun, coming out to the PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X, and Nintendo Switch. Join Renata as she adventures across the mystical ruins of a titular Froggun. Froggun is an old-school platform with the soul of the PS1 Nintendo 64 era, in which your frog-shaped grappling hook is your best friend. This looks adorable. It does remind me of an early PlayStation 1 and 64 platformer. It has like a almost Spyro Crash Bandicoot vibe to it. Take a look at it if you're interested. I love that name, by the way, and the art style is adorable. Also out this week, Hard West 2 on the PC. Hard West 2 is a journey to the heart of darkness of the American West. Take control of a supernatural posse and catch the mysterious ghost train. Outsmart, outcheat, and outgun your enemies in this turn-based tactics game set in a Wild West world where nothing is as it seems. Hell yes. Super excited for this. I love the first Ghost Train. I love the first Hard West. Really looking forward to playing this one. It seems to be focused on one party throughout the entire game. Hard West 1 had this kind of like two competing factions, and you will alternate between different characters playing them. This one seems to be more focused a more focused story around one specific group of people. Really, really looking forward to this. I hope they bring back that ricochet system. The original Hard West had this ricochet setup where if you have like a revolver, you can aim at a frying pan, which will cause your bullet to bounce off like the little dinner triangle to bounce off the water tower to hit the guy from behind. I kind of hope they bring that back on here because I thought that was really cool. Finally, this week we have Gigabash on the PC, the PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5. Claim your place as King among Titans. Gigabash is a multiplayer arena brawler with gigantic film-inspired kaiju, larger-than-life heroes, earth-shattering special attacks, and fully destructible environments. This looks like War of the Monsters on PlayStation 2. At least I think that game was called War of the Monsters. The arena brawler where you essentially pick your favorite giant monster and beat the shit out of everyone else, and last man standing wins. This looks cool. It's probably best played with more than one person, which means I probably won't take a look at it. But if you remember that War of the Monsters game, this really gives strong vibes of that, and I'd recommend you taking a look at that. That does it for new releases, which means that also does it for the show as well. This has been GamePoints episode 321, and thank you all for showing up. We stream live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here at Twitch TV/GamePoints, so feel free to drop on by and join the conversation, as it were. If you can't watch us live, however, this does go up on a myriad of video hosting platforms as well, including YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc. There's a Discord you can join, link provided down there somewhere, regardless if you're watching us. You can follow me on Twitter at CapitalistPig21, and if you like what you saw here, you know what the streamers want. Likes, bits, follows, shares, whatever the place you're looking at, do those things. You know, they help more than you might think. Anyways, thank you all for showing up. This has been GamePoints, and until next week, I'm out of here.